At the end of Bluey Season 3, we find out that the main character is going to have a daughter, but to this day, there's still a big mystery around who the dad of this little pup really is. Are you ready to find out everything the show's creator revealed about this secret? Bluey's daughter hasn't been officially named yet, but here on our channel, we call her Roxey. And the main fan theory about who her dad is points to Mackenzie, the border collie from New Zealand. There are a few theories that explain why fans want this to be true. Let's start with what happens in the original 2016 pilot episode, when Bluey is on the swing at the neighborhood fair. In that moment, two pups we all know very well walk up to her. That's when Bluey calls out to Mackenzie. Nothing weird about that, except the character who responds is actually the one we now know as Rusty. In other words, in Bluey's first version, the red kelpie was going to be named Mackenzie and was supposed to be really close to the blue pup. So from the beginning, the show always planned to have a character named Mackenzie hanging out with Bluey. But it goes even deeper than that. A lot of people don't know this, but Rusty, the red kelpie, was actually meant to be the main character at first. If you connect the dots, you'll notice Joe Brumm, the creator of the show, always intended for there to be a character named Mackenzie who'd have a strong bond with Bluey. And that's just the beginning of all the clues we have to help us figure out who Roxey's real dad might be, because there are other candidates too. But for now, you know what to do. Grab your popcorn and something cold to drink. It's time for another episode of Cinewave. Still talking about Mackenzie, do you remember the Barky Boats episode? That story starts at school when Calypso says something special is going to happen that day. The border collie and Bluey both ask at the same time what's going to be so special. That's when Winton walks up and says Bluey's going to marry Mackenzie. But neither pup likes that idea, and they tell the bulldog he's wrong. Here's a fun fact. In some parts of the world, there's a legend that says when two people say the same thing at the same time, it means they have a really strong connection. That's why Winton said the two would get married. Of course, Joe Brumm knows about this legend and used it to highlight the bond between Bluey and the border collie. On top of that, the entire episode shows a love interest between Mia and Captain, two older characters who are going through a different phase in their life, their first love. Since Bluey and Mackenzie are still really young, the show can't jump into a love story for them yet, but it does drop hints about the future, and one way it does that is by using older characters as a mirror. In that same episode, Calypso explains that as you grow up, certain feelings begin to appear. So it's pretty clear that Bluey and Mackenzie will eventually fall in love. The real question is, when is that going to happen? Are there other clues that Mackenzie is going to be Roxey's dad? Definitely. Bluey's daughter looks a lot like the border collie, and Joe Brumm himself said so. In an interview for the Gotta Be Done podcast, the show's creator confirmed that the pup who appears at the end of the surprise episode is a female, which confirms the gender of Bluey's child. But when they asked who the father is, Joe Brumm said he asked the animators to design the new pup using traits from both Mackenzie and another dog. So yeah, it's more than confirmed that Roxey shares physical features with the border collie. This little detail is a huge hint that Mackenzie is one of the strongest contenders to be the pup's father. Plus, if you pay attention to the Fruit Bat episode, you'll see that Bluey actually dreams about the border collie. That clearly shows she has feelings for him. But is it possible there's another character who could be Roxey's real dad? We'll find out in just a moment. So, who do you want Roxey's dad to be? Mackenzie or Jean-Luc? Drop a hashtag Roxey in the comments so we can get to know you. Jean-Luc is another character who's definitely a strong contender for Roxey's dad, and one of the biggest arguments for this is that he only appeared in one episode, but even after 3 full seasons, no one has forgotten about him. Also, according to the official Bluey website, Jean-Luc learned English just so he could talk to Bluey someday, and that's a pretty romantic reason, isn't it? That shows the Canadian Labrador never forgot about the Blue Heeler, but does Bluey feel the same way? Well, there's proof that she does. Everyone knows the blue pup expresses her feelings through drawing. We see it in the Dragon episode, where she creates an entire adventure through her drawings, and also in the mini episode Butlers, where we all get taken on a journey inside Bluey's doodles. Now, if you look closely at the Bingo episode in Season 2, you'll spot a scene where one of Bluey's drawings is taped to the wall. And guess what? It shows her standing next to Jean-Luc. This happened several episodes after they first met. So even after all that time, our main character still hasn't forgotten about the Labrador. That's a pretty solid sign that those two might really end up together. But what do you think? There's still another possibility. We already told you that Joe Brumm asked the animators to add Mackenzie's features to Roxey, but he did the same thing with Jean-Luc. In that same podcast interview, the show's creator made it clear that the idea was to give Roxey characteristics from 2 possible candidates, the Border Collie and the Labrador. That's a pretty solid sign that Jean-Luc might actually be the one the creators chose to be Roxey's father. And it's worth remembering that at the end of the camping episode, Jean-Luc comes back to Australia and reunites with Bluey under the tree they planted together. And do you know what kind of tree that was? According to our sources, it was a pink trumpet tree, a species known for attracting bees and hummingbirds, and both of those animals are often associated with romantic love. In other words, the biggest symbol of Bluey and Jean-Luc's friendship has a strong connection to romance. If that isn't a sign they're going to end up together, then what is? What do you think about this theory? Tell us in the comments. Now let's talk about a different possibility, one that barely anyone's thought of. What if Roxey's real father is actually a dog no one's considered because he hasn't shown up in the show yet? We're talking about a blue heeler, just like our main character. Think that sounds impossible? We're about to show you some solid proof. First off, if you take a close look at most of the characters in the show, you'll notice that they're the kids of parents who are the same breed. Chloe has 2 Dalmatian parents, Mackenzie has 2 Border Collies, and most of Bluey's friends, including her own parents, come from parents of the same breed. So the idea of a new character showing up, someone who's a blue heeler and falls in love with Bluey, is actually very likely. The next season of the show already confirmed we'll be seeing some new puppies introduced into the story. That makes us think that Bluey's future husband might be someone from her same breed, and honestly that tracks. Most people don't end up marrying their childhood crush. Even Frisky explained that to Bluey in the Double Babysitter episode. Some loves just don't last forever. Our main character is going to find the love of her life when she's older and mature enough to handle a real relationship. And that makes total sense, don't you think? We also think it's the perfect time for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Wow! Another layer to this theory is that Joe Brumm really did ask for Roxey to have traits from both Mackenzie and Jean-Luc at the same time. The creator's whole idea was to mess with the fans a little because he knows there are 2 camps, Team Mackenzie and Team Jean-Luc. So if Roxey really does have features from both, it might mean she's not the daughter of either one. Maybe Joe Brumm just wanted to fuel even more fan theories in the Bluey universe. But if you look closely at Roxey, you'll notice she's not exactly blue, she's kind of purple. And do you know how purple is made? By mixing blue and red. That could be a clue that Roxey is the daughter of Bluey and a red heeler, just like Chili. Her fur color might be a hidden hint that her dad is from Chili's breed. Do you believe in that theory? We'll find out soon enough. Now let's talk about what's actually going on. Roxey has a much higher chance of being Mackenzie's daughter than anyone else's, and here's why. When you look at Bluey, it's easy to tell what breed she is. The same goes for the other characters. It's impossible to say Winton isn't a bulldog, and no way Chloe isn't a Dalmatian or Coco isn't a poodle. Roxey is clearly a breed called a border heeler, a mix of a blue heeler like Bluey and a border collie like Mackenzie. Roxey's ears are just like Mackenzie's, so is the dark spot on her head. And the whole idea that Bluey has to marry someone from her own breed doesn't really hold up. First, the show already includes characters who are mixed breeds. Frisky and Uncle Radley's baby is going to be a mix, and Winton's dad is dating the terrier's mom. So there's no rule that says Bluey has to fall for someone from her own breed. Second, yes, Jean-Luc does return to Australia, that's true, but he comes back as a teenager. That means when he reunites with Bluey, they're still not adults. And like we said before, most people don't marry their first love, just like Frisky and Bosco. Not to mention, Jean-Luc probably ends up going back to Canada. There's no sign at all that he moved to Brisbane. Third, one theory says Roxey is purple because it's a mix of blue and red, but that doesn't make much sense. Let's remember, Bluey is Chili's daughter, but she's the exact same color as Bandit, and Uncle Radley is a blend of both parents' colors. So if that theory were true, Roxey would probably look more like Bandit's older brother than she does now. The truth is, right now, the show hasn't given us a clear answer about who Roxey's dad really is, so everything floating around online is just speculation. Of course, there are lots of clues about who Bluey's future husband might be, but we'd say there's more evidence pointing to Mackenzie being Roxey's dad, especially since the Barky Boats episode is entirely focused on their relationship. But what do you think? We think you should totally stick around with us to catch all the latest updates. That's why we've picked out 2 more videos for you to enjoy. We'll see you in the next one. Catch you later!